Hey, film dorks, welcome back to my end of the year review. 2020. It was the worst of times. It was kind of still the worst of times, but with some bright spots. And it was just a really weird year. So in this third and final video, looking back over my cinematic experiences for 2020, I want to talk about the unusual films. They weren't the best things I'd ever seen, they weren't the worst things I saw, but they stuck in my mind for just being different. Films like, for example, Francis Ford Coppola's Twix. Seriously, like, what the ever-loving hell? This was so entertainingly awful, so convoluted and weird, and just...
The fog on the lake was like the straight edge of a razor.
What? Like, seriously, what the hell is that? Troll 2, like Twix, but without all of the convoluted artsy stuff. This movie is famously awful, but there's a real charming authenticity to it. Like, you can tell everybody making this movie is really giving their all. Nobody's sleepwalking through their performances. The direction is clearly there. I'm not saying any of the acting is good, it's all awful, but you can tell everyone involved cared about this project and cared about making the movie. So it's bad, but it's still entertaining as hell, and there's an earnestness to it. Now, some people recommend you watch this in tandem with Best Worst Movie, which is a documentary that was made decades later about making Troll 2. Personally, I actually found that watching the documentary kind of tarnished the original, and it left me feeling a little bit icky for having watched it. Still, that first viewing, man, there's not much I can compare it to. Also, yeah, that's right. This isn't on my worst of the year list because I think this is actually a more entertaining film than either The Hateful Eight or Inglourious Basterds.
Come on, bro, at me.
Locke is 90 minutes of Tom Hardy making phone calls from inside a car. Yeah, no, that's literally that's the movie. And it's one of the most riveting things I've ever seen. Hardy's performance in this is just mind-blowing and complex and just so genuine. And his everyday struggles that he's going through with this job that he's trying to get off the ground, and his marriage collapsing, and an uncertain future in front of him. I would never have believed that a movie like this could be this gripping. A Woman Under the Influence. Back again. Yeah, it was one of my best of the years. It's also one of the most unusual. The documentary style camera work, the feeling that you're a fly on the wall in the everyday lives of this very unusual working class family. It's similar to some of Yasujiro Ozu's films, and that it's like it takes these simple, ordinary moments, and by paying attention to them, it elevates them into something we should be paying attention to. The whole picture was just such a revelation for me with that. Afraid of the Dark is a 1991 psychological thriller that is kind of, in some ways, like, I would almost describe it as Mulholland Drive-esque. It's very much a film in two parts, but very definitely not done in a David Lynch humorous kind of style. The funny thing about this movie, I did not know what this movie was. When I was a kid, we borrowed this tape from a friend of my dad's, and he'd recorded something off from TV onto it for us. And at the end of the tape, there was a scene left over from some movie that he'd recorded previously. And with no context or anything, the scene that was on there at the end of that tape was one of the most terrifying things I had seen at that time. I was like 12, and I carried the images from that scene in my head for the last 20 years. Finally, after years of trying to figure out what this movie could have been, I was able to locate it through the magic of the interwebs. And whoa, is that a seriously dark and seriously fascinating movie. I don't want to get too much into the plot details, but the film is just full of ambiguity and tension, and there's this really chilling scene near the climax where the protagonist, who's a young boy with seriously bad eyesight, has an experience where the world of the first half of the film and the world of the second half of the film kind of collide temporarily, and it's one of the most chilling things that I've seen in a long time. For my next two picks, I have two Yasujiro Ozu films. The first one is Floating Weeds, which is actually a remake of his earlier silent film, A Story of Floating Weeds. What amazes me with this one is that it's shot in that same Ozu style that I've talked about previously, but here it's like he adds this other layer onto it. Floating Weeds is a story of deception and bad communication and secrets. And so in addition to the usual frame within a frame type devices and everything, Ozu here films a lot of the movie with those frames within frames obscuring people's faces or filming characters in certain scenes from behind them so you can't actually tell for sure what's going on with them. And it really just emphasizes that idea of secrets and lines of communication that are not functioning. It's a powerful reminder of how framing and blocking can be used to add depth to a film. My second Ozu pick is The Flavor of Green Tea Over Rice, specifically the climax. Without getting into too much detail, this movie is the tale of a married couple who, after years of feeling disconnected from each other, are starting to feel their way back towards the possibility of a real successful partnership. And for me, I don't think you can get a better metaphor for a relationship than the climactic scene, which sees the two of them wandering through the kitchen of their house looking for ingredients to make themselves a late night dinner, laughing and comparing notes and just trying to figure out a way they can sustain themselves and each other. The flavor of green tea over rice is earthy and full of little spikes of flavor and otherwise just warm and comforting, and yeah, that's what it is. My last entry on this list is, again, kind of a cheat. No surprise, apparently that's what I do this year. But it's this channel and the way it's grown and the work that I've put into it, and I'm pretty proud of it. I mean, comparing last year to this year, I went from doing a video every 3 to 4 months and promising to do more to doing a video every 6 weeks or so and promising to do more. But in all seriousness, I mean, I made 16 videos this year, which I didn't quite make my goal of actually producing one every month, but it averages out to more than one a month, so I call this a win. I also managed to beat last year's count for 144 movies. This year I watched a total of...
In 2020, you viewed a total of 148 movies.
Whoa, 148 movies. Pretty pleased with myself on that one. So, 2021, I'm not going to make the mistake I made the beginning of 2020 talking about how good the year was, but some new goals. I want to make even more videos for you guys, hopefully more than one a month. I want to do more Trifectura reviews. I want to experiment with different styles and film techniques and maybe some different segments, kind of like I was doing the Unframed over the summer. I also want to hear from you guys, let me know what you think is working on the channel. What do you think doesn't work so well? How can I improve? What do you want to see me do differently next year? Give me some of that sweet, sweet feedback. So one more time, guys, happy holidays, happy new year. Goodbye 2020, hello 2021. Mwah! I refuse to say whether 2021 is going to be a good year or a bad year after the fiasco that was 2020, but I will say that I will see you on the flip side.
Calculating.
What? I don't...
Calculating.
What the hell's going on?
148 movies. 16.
What are you
YouTube
doing?
Videos.
What the
Calculating.
Seriously, what the is going on? Why is my... What are you
Phase
doing?
1 complete.
What the hell?
Phase
Jesus.
1 complete.
Jesus Christ. What the...
Commencing phase 2 in
No!